Welcome back. Welcome to our second session. And this is for July 6, 2024. We review emerging markets, international markets, and the lesson of the week. So this is as a Wednesday. You see there were quite a few nice returns. As a whole, the year, besides China's Shenzhen Composite Index and Indonesia and Thailand, as well as Brazil and Mexico and Saudi Arabia, a lot of markets are in nice positive and even double digits. The strength, this is for the 6 months, and what I did, I ranked them by RSI, and we can see South Korea had really nice day, and Taiwan, we've been talking about Taiwan, India, these are the favorite markets. Even emerging markets have been moving nicely, and in Japan, there's been that interference of the Bank of Japan with the controlling the yen. So we had a nice jump on that. So RSI had a nice move. We also had when we look at United Kingdom, for instance, the market were consolidating, and then we had a nice move. So the weaker markets are still in Hong Kong, Mexico, and China. So we see how they have been reacting. So we had this election, UK general election, and the Labour Party actually won, and they actually started, the Prime Minister started on Saturday, and there was a landslide victory, and they took 412 seats, and they have 174 majority in the Labour Party, and that was the worst conservative result in terms of seats in the history, with the party on 121. And now the Liberal Democrats also have the highest tally since 1923 with 72 seats. So this is the breakdown of the votes. You can see the big gap, and look at the seat shares. So there was a big no to the Conservative Party, and that's also, affects the social programs, and see how, the British pound reacted positively. So, and this is just a little more since 2019 to 2024. What has happened? We can see the Labour Party gone from 201 to 412, and the Conservatives have gone from 372 to 129, with multiple prime ministers at the same time from the Conservative Party. Speaking of business and the environment, the politics, let's take a look at top 10 countries by corporate tax rates. Now, we have elections in the United States in the next few months, and the markets are watching that. They're looking at, are they going to be higher taxes depending on which party is going to be in control? There's state taxes in question, whether we'll have like wealth taxes. So this is the highest in 2023 from Comoros, then Puerto Rico, Suriname, Argentina, Chad, Colombia, Cuba, Equatorial Guinea, Malta, and Sudan. So you see majority of the countries are from Latin America and Africa, or South America as well. So basically this was as of 2023. In 1980, Ghana had the 60%, as well as India, China, Pakistan, Peru, Austria, United Kingdom. You see a lot of countries had above the 50%. So we've come a long way in past 43 years. Also, this is interesting to see that like in 1980, 1990, and 2000, Iran had the highest corporate tax. In 1990 was 75%. And so this is a little food for thought. 2010, the United States was at 39.2. That was the fourth highest. So just, the business taxes do affect obviously the economy, and that's important to have it again, especially with more independent corporations, that plays a big role. Talking about companies, also I want to see where the automakers are selling their cars globally. So we see Toyota being the largest, they are really diversified, but their biggest market is the rest of Asia. China has 20% of their markets, and North America has 23%. But interesting thing is Hyundai and Kia, they sell more in the rest of Asia than Toyota, and the same thing in North America. Honda has the largest actually out of the Japanese and Asian countries. Another thing is Honda has 33% of its sales comes from China. One interesting thing was the German cars, the Volkswagen and BMW. The biggest share comes from China, and after that is Europe. So China plays a huge role for these two German car makers. Now, on the other hand, in North America, Chevrolet has its biggest market is North America, 66%. Ford is at 57%. On the other hand, Chevrolet has 22% Latin America, but no presence in Europe, small in China, and the rest of Asia. So these are interesting. Mercedes has a big, obviously, Europe is biggest market. And again, we see these European companies have a big presence as well as the Japanese. So that was interesting. Now, talking about Meta had a really a nice day on Friday. So what are the great or the biggest social media giants with the biggest subscriptions and presence? So as we can see, number one is Facebook, and it has 2.9 billion active users. Now, the Facebook's, the biggest users base as far as the numbers go, it's in India with 350 million, and then United States at 139.9 million. Indonesia has 142.5 million. Then we have the YouTube, which is owned by Alphabet Google at almost 3 billion. Then we have WhatsApp at 2 billion, Messengers 1.3 billion. And then we have TikTok here, Telegram, and Qzone. So just another tidbit. Talk about elections. We also had a runoff in Iran on Friday. There was a second round, or the first one, we have to have the majority. They didn't, so there was a two of candidates. One was supposedly more reformist. He used to be ex-health minister of Iran, and he was going against a very conservative hardliner, Saeed Jalili, which actually he did negotiate the nuclear power on a more of a, he wasn't really pro-negotiation. Supposedly Pezeshkian is who's actually a heart surgeon, and Pezeshk in Persian or Iranian means doctor, so his last name is his career. But anyway, he's more friendly toward West, supposedly. So based on that, and he won because there was a better turnout to help him. I want to look at the currency of Iran, which is rial, and it was at 50,000. We went as high as 66,000. Then we had the Middle East situation. If you recall, the Israel attacked, and the president of Iran, the helicopter crashed. That's why they had this election. And I want to show you before the runoff and where we stand as of Friday. We just broke below the 68,000. We had like 59,500 or so. So that's just what the currency is, still way above where we were in January. All right. So we talked about the Friday's employment number and why you have to pay attention to. Now, this is how the market reacted. As you can see, the market is thinking that there would be a 72.5% possibility of a 0.25% reduction for the September meeting. As a matter of fact, there's a 0.5% till then at 5.1% probability. So why it's important? Look why the markets reacted positively, why we had like gold up, dollar down, and basically, look, exactly a week ago, the possibility was at 57.9% for reduction in rate in September. We stand at 72.2. And as of day, and then at the end of the day, it was at 72.5. So the other thing is, it has been a fantastic 6 months. Last week, I reviewed all the 6-month reports, but let's look at this magnificent 5 companies and how they have attributed to S&P 500's returns and market cap. So we can see NVIDIA was at $1.2 trillion as of June 28th, is at $3 trillion. It has increased 1.8 trillion. And because of that, the contribution has really increased, and it was responsible for 31.3% of the contribution to S&P. Microsoft was 9.1%, Alphabet was 8.7%, Amazon 7.6%, and Meta was at 6.4%. What this means, these 5 companies contributed 63.2% to that 14.5% return of S&P. What that means is these companies single-handedly, they contributed 9.16% of that 14.5%. That means the remaining 495 companies were only up 4.84%. Also, you have to consider the half of the S&P 500 companies, which are 250 or more, had little to negative returns. So how long we can do this, I don't know, but this can last a long time because, you know, the strength brings the strength. So, but from valuation point of view, just be aware. On the other hand, we had so far 31 new highs in first 6 months. And the only time we had in past 20 years, actually, in this millennial, was only 2021. We had 34 new highs. We used to have that in 1995, we had 44, and then 1999, we had 35. So there's a tale of two, but historically, what has happened, when there's a lot of new highs happen, it brings more new highs in the coming months and years. So what we can see as far as the return goes, that when we had at the midpoint, we had high, quite a few highs. This is how the markets have behaved the rest of the year, the full year. So again, these are statistics. We had this in 2021, the last one. We had 34 new highs, and then we had 17 new highs, and the second half of you had 36. As you can see, the next 3 months, this was actually, and the rest of the year was up 10.9%. This is a halfway through. And if you go from full year, it was up 26.9. So from now till next year, what is the odds? So you can see for full year, it's average 20.1%. Just a food for thought. On the valuation side, though, when we look at the GAAP PE, which is generally accepted accounting practices, we see that this is where we stand. We are at 27.12. We see we are at all-time high, and then basically how the market has returned when we've had like the COVID. We did have how the market react when we had the financial crisis. That was the highest, the GAAP P at 132.59, and the dot-com. So we are not at extremes, but again, this is from the balance sheet that we look at, and the accounting, basically from a fundamental side of things. The next I mentioned, this is really interesting, and I know dividend payments are they're steady, but there is validity for buying. If you have a long-term portfolio, put your money into dividend stocks. This is a return on $100 investments from 1973 to 2023, which is past 50 years. And you see the dividend growers. I want to emphasize that. And we've talked about that. We want these growers coming organically. And look at that $100. It will be almost 14,000, and how it has grown. And the dividend payers are next. Equal weighted S&P 500. then the dividend non-payers, and then the dividend cutters. You can see there's no growth. So pay attention. It's good to find some of the, again, good companies with the dividend growth. So I hope that was helpful. And we will move on to our last session, which will be the trade of the week. Thank you.